Now available in paperback and Kindle Unlimited. Isis, Escape from Transylvania. The goddess next door and John Haynes must escape a horde of vampires on the hunt in this horror-filled Isis series adventure. Get Isis, Escape from Transylvania in paperback and Kindle Unlimited today. Kevin Feige is now in charge of everything Marvel. In a recent promotion, Kevin Feige was made the new Chief Creative Officer at Marvel. And that means he is not only in charge of Marvel Studios, but he's also in charge of Marvel Comics and Marvel television programs like Cloak and Dagger and many of the previous Marvel Netflix series like Daredevil and Luke Cage. So everything at Marvel is now in Kevin Feige's hands, and those are hands I really don't trust as related to the Marvel brand. Now, when I take a critical examination of the direction Kevin Feige has taken the Marvel Cinematic Universe in, he has not really done that great of a job as of late. Yes, in the beginning, he did a great job building the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but I don't think that template is really going to be able to sustain the overall Marvel brand, because as I look at the template for the Marvel business model, it's getting old, it's getting stale, and many of the approaches that work for Marvel Studios movies really don't work too well for other forms of media like the Marvel television division or the Marvel Comics division. And what I think Disney is trying to do is they're trying to synergize everything by having everybody follow in Kevin Feige's footsteps. But I see how Kevin Feige's footsteps have started to stumble with movies like Spider-Man Homecoming. Yes, these movies like Spider-Man Homecoming were tremendous box office successes. However, when I look at them from a creative perspective, movies ever since Spider-Man Homecoming have gotten extremely bland, extremely uninspired, and the visuals in many Marvel Studios movies, just like Martin Scorsese has said, have began to resemble theme parks in their repetitiveness and their lack of actual creativity. So when I look at Kevin Feige's vision for the overall Marvel brand, I don't see something that is fresh and exciting as related to the Marvel brand. When I look at Kevin Feige's vision as of late for the overall Marvel brand, I see a guy who is looking like he's getting ready to burn out as related to creativity, and a guy who's looking like he's starting to run out of ideas. And this is not really the person you want to have in charge of the overall Marvel brand, and then looking to put his approach on all of the Marvel platforms. And yes, those platforms are making money now, but in the long term, I think him being in charge of the overall Marvel brand could do the exact same damage that Geoff Johns being placed in a similar position did a couple of years ago for DC Comics. Because when Geoff Johns was given an executive promotion, his overall craft suffered. A lot of his comics, like Doomsday Clock, were not coming out consistently on time because he was overwhelmed by so much work. He was working on TV shows, on the DC Universe brand, he was working on comics, and I think he was working on movies. So Geoff Johns practically overextended himself as related to DC properties, and I believe your Kevin Feige is going to overextend himself as well. Because with him in complete control over all things Marvel, then how is anybody else going to have room to do anything else? I mean, if he's doing everything, then where does that leave all of the other talent in places at Marvel? So that's a big problem for me, having one person in charge of everything, and sometimes having one person in charge of everything, like Kathleen Kennedy was at Star Wars, can be detrimental to a brand. Because if we look at Kathleen Kennedy's vision for Star Wars, she practically destroyed almost 40 years of goodwill and hope over at Star Wars and a solid fan base, and alienated all of those veteran Star Wars fans in an effort to try to promote feminism and identity politics. And I'm looking at Kevin Feige's later movies, and I see the same push towards that identity politics in many of the more recent Marvel Studios movies, and this could be a bad turn for the everything Marvel, especially if Marvel stays on what many call the SJW platform and continue to push what many call the SJW agenda in things like their movies, like their comic books, and we start to see this synergize in all of their products. What it could do is wind up alienating people from your MCU movies, Marvel Comics, and even products like action figures and merchandising. Because for everything to be so close together, this, as I see it, is never really a good idea. You really want to have some space between each of these divisions. So yes, they will work together, but they will also have the opportunity to be creative as well, because that creativity is the thing that allows people to feel like they have some sort of input on the projects they're working on, some sort of imagination in the products what they're working on. But if you have everything under Kevin Feige, you're going to get this very, as I see it, bland, homogenized, pasteurized product, and a product literally like something out of a theme park, but not something fresh and exciting and original the way Marvel Comics used to be. So instead of us getting the world outside of our window, we would get nothing more than a pasteurized, homogenized, processed product that would come from every division. And all of those products, if they're going to follow what they call the SJW platform, then this is a platform that may not do well for the Marvel brand. Now, yes, your Marvel Publishing division has had its series of issues, but as I see it, they need a seasoned publishing pro over that, and sadly, we don't have that seasoned publishing pro over the division, and with Feige taking over all of the creative aspects of Marvel, this is just something I don't think is a positive thing, because with one man having too much control over a brand, this is something that can lead to that brand falling completely off. And when I look at Kevin Feige over the last 10 years, he has been trying to get control over everything Marvel, and I'm not really happy with the way he tried to get control over everything Marvel. Because this man, he went out of his way to alienate people over at Netflix who were producing far superior programming than his MCU movies. Shows like Daredevil and Luke Cage had far better writing, but because he didn't like the fact that he didn't have control over those programs, he went out of his way to try to destroy that whole Netflix part of the MCU, and that was something that really rubbed me the wrong way, because, again, when you look at Daredevil Season 3 and you look at Luke Cage Season 2, the writing was far superior to anything that was featured in Avengers Infinity War, Avengers Endgame, Spider-Man Homecoming, Ant-Man and the Wasp, and even Captain America Civil War. The writing in Daredevil Season 3 and Luke Cage Season 2 was far above what was there, and Kevin Feige let all of those good writers go and kept these mediocre writers who gave us an Endgame, which was far below the standard of what a Marvel story should have been. So when I look at his control issues, I see something that's a serious problem for Marvel's divisions, and I see someone who would look to try to bring an MCU approach into Marvel Comics. And Marvel Comics and the MCU are two separate universes, and if he wants to put those two universes together, I think that, and try to synergize them, I think that would be a bad decision, because Marvel Cinematic Universe movies are adaptations of Marvel Comics, and Marvel Comics are original stories that feature Marvel characters. I wouldn't want to see the movie version of Captain America or Iron Man in a Marvel comic. I wouldn't want to see that, because the cinematic version is a copy of what comes out of the comics. I want the comic book characters to stay true to themselves, and I want the movie versions to stay true to the source material, but be the way they were already established. I don't want to see these characters changed any further than they were, like they were in Avengers Endgame, where we saw these heroes make that compromise that literally made them betray all of their beliefs. And I'm really concerned about, again, the MCU's influence on Marvel Comics, because we're starting to see those so-called SJW elements coming into Marvel Cinematic Universe movies. And if they're going to synergize it where we're getting SJW Marvel, then Kevin Feige in charge of Marvel, everything Marvel, would not be something positive overall, and him having control over everything Marvel overall would not be something constructive. I mean, when I look at this business decision, I don't really think it's a smart one. I believe that the publishing division, again, while it's having its problems in terms of sales, it needs someone who can lead that division with publishing experience, a passion for comics, and a goal towards reaching the next generation of comic book readers and trying to find a new way to distribute comics that allows comic book fans to build the word of mouth that will allow comics to reach the next generation of readers. So that's something that really needs to be focused on. But when I think about Kevin Feige in charge of everything Marvel, I think about how bad this could go, because this could go just as bad as Lucasfilm under Kathleen Kennedy. And Kathleen Kennedy's vision for Star Wars derailed that brand. And I believe Kevin Feige's vision for Marvel Comics and the everything Marvel could have the same disastrous result. If you want to pick up some of my SJS Direct fantasy and science fiction titles, like the ISIS series, the E-Steam series, the John Haynes series, The Temptation of John Haynes, and the Spinsterella trilogy, you may do so by clicking the link to Amazon.com in the description box. And if you want to help me make more videos talking about comic books, science fiction, and fantasy, you can donate to my Patreon, my PayPal, and my Cash App by clicking the link in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.